Alrighty, welcome everyone back to my channel. This is Runko Pop, and I'm starting up the podcast again, Crowdfunding Comics, and where we take a look at different campaigns from comic book creators, see what's worked for them and what hasn't. Today we have Clint Stoker, also known as Sweetcast. Definitely can check him out at Sweetcast on YouTube and on Twitter. He has run multiple campaigns with his series Downcast and with Dracula and FATL. Totaling in the campaigns he's ran actually over $240,000 funds raised on Indiegogo. So thanks a lot for joining me, Clint.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's crazy when I look at the number of everything together. I'm like, wow, it doesn't feel like that much money, but
Right.
like when you go through all those print runs and all the production of those books, like it's pretty wild, really. So
Right. For sure, for sure. Well, yeah, so again, yeah, thanks for doing this. And I guess we will just jump right into it. Before we get into the campaigns, I just like to, get your take on or your information, I guess, like what got you into comics, and like, did you always want to make them, or did you kind of fall into it accidentally, or what's your origin story?
yeah, so I didn't really read comics when I was growing up. I did a little, but it was more like I would go to the library and get the Garfield strips,
Okay.
and things like that. When I was, 21, I think, I picked up my first actual Spider-Man comic, and the order of events is a little foggy, but essentially I got into comics in my 20s, and they were cool. I really enjoyed them. I started writing novels actually first. I wrote 2 novels and self-published on Amazon, and that was really fulfilling and fun. Like I'm kind of an entrepreneurial guy at heart. I'm always trying new things like that, and writing was fun. But I always thought it'd be great to write a comic. However, getting an artist is hard, especially
Yeah.
if you're a writer, you're not doing your own art. That's like it's got to be the number one question I get is how do you find an artist,
Okay.
and that's because it's hard. So at the time, I was kind of looking for, work in anthologies. They always said that was the way to get into comics was anthologies. I would hire artists. Remember, like one time I sold a gun so that I could afford to pay an artist for 8 pages to
Oh wow.
do, a little 8-page story for Image Comics. And I never heard back from them. So that's a rejection. That's they
Right.
don't they don't tell you anything.
Right.
So it was like crazy because it was this big ordeal to hire an artist. And now it's kind of funny looking back, but at the time it was like, it was kind of a lot of money. I sold like it was a World War II rifle, so
Oh
that I
wow.
had enough money to just finance those 8 pages. But it was a good learning experience on just making comics and working with another artist. Um, Fast forward to 2018,
Hmm.
uh, I started a YouTube channel. I was kind of talking about whatever. It was like it'd be politics, or like I wanted to share my opinion on MLMs, like multi-level marketing
Oh
and
sure.
stuff like that. I'm not a fan of multi-level marketing, but I didn't want some of my family members to know directly, but I wanted to share my opinion on it. So I started Sweetcast, and it was reason I called it Sweetcast is because it was so general. I figured I could talk about anything.
Okay.
Um, but then the news rolled out about Mark Wade and the tortious interference,
Oh sure.
and all that kind of stuff. And I immediately made a video on that because I knew how hard it was to get published in comics. It was just I was so fired up. So I started making videos on that. I just had a lot to say on it, and turns out there were a lot of people that also had a lot to say about it, and so
Yeah.
it kind of just ballooned from there. But at some point in time, I don't remember exactly when, I realized, hey, I could try crowdfunding again. I had already done it in the past, and failed on Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, here's my chance because I'm getting enough views. I'm getting in front of enough people that I could make a go at this. So I went back to Downcast. Downcast was a story that I had started drawing myself. I'd kind of tried to get artists to work with me, and it was really hard, being an unpublished writer in comics. And so I thought that the novels would help me give me some credibility, but it really didn't.
Okay.
Um, so that, I mean, I think it helped with readers, but as far as finding an artist, it didn't really help. And then yeah, the rest is somewhat history. So 2019, May 2019, I launched this campaign, or it ended off in May, I guess. And it was a successful campaign by any measure.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it kicked off. I mean, it's crazy now. Downcast Volume 4 is launching soon. It's wild to think about.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Definitely looking forward to that campaign. I got the first three. Actually,
Oh,
yeah, I think I have all your books. Actually, I'm not sure if I think I got Dracula, but I just received FATL a couple weeks ago. So yeah, I'm definitely
cool.
looking forward to Downcast. I like the story and the whole world and the concept that you created in that. So
Oh, thanks.
yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I actually have dabbled in self-publishing as far as novels and whatnot myself. I've written under my real name, Ron Tucker. I have like a YA superhero uh book 4 book set that I've published through Amazon and everything. So yeah, I like that entrepreneurial spirit of it, like doing everything yourself kind of.
Yeah, it's weird because I know authors in my real life around here. Utah's actually really big for YA writers. There's a bunch of them from
Oh, okay.
around here, um, and I know some in real life. And if they don't get a publishing deal, they just give up on the
Yeah.
book. And it's so weird to me because I'm like, you put all that time and effort into it, I mean, there's so many factors why you won't get an agent and why they won't sell a book to a publisher, but publish it yourself. And I mean, it's awesome. I think because you're very unlikely to get the chance from a publisher unless you do it yourself, and
Yeah.
then doors begin to open once they
Yeah.
see you can do it yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So real quick before we jump in actually to your first one, Downcast. So you mentioned about raising the money, selling the gun for that 8 pager to Image Comics, and then once you started doing your YouTube stuff, you built a little audience there, and you started Downcast. Was there any, I guess, idea or thought of like after you had started building that audience on the YouTube, thanks, on YouTube, instead of going to crowdfunding? Sorry about that.
You
Was
can.
there any thought of using that to like, oh, go back to Image or maybe a different publisher and saying, "I have a little bit of a following here," and then pitching that way? Or was it just straight, "Let's do crowdfunding"?
Um, so it crossed my mind a few times, and it wasn't ever part of the plan. But when it ended up happening, I didn't actually talk about this very much, but I would get publishers reached out to me.
Oh,
Um,
well.
so I had Dynamite reach out to me. I talked to Nick Barucci about it. Talked to an editor over there.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
used to say anything, but I guess I'm in the mood, so
Sure,
I'll
sure.
let you know. But yeah, they talked to me, approached to me about writing something for them, and then it just fizzled out. And
Okay.
so at first I was totally down to do it. I'll full disclosure, I wanted to do James Bond. I don't know if
Mm,
they still have the rights for James Bond, and they didn't offer me James Bond. They just said something.
right,
Um,
okay.
in hindsight, I'm sure they were more interested in me crowdfunding a book for them, like a one shot or something
Mm,
like that, because it seems like that's what they do. And at
yeah,
the time, my YouTube channel was at its uh, it was at its peak. I think most people thought I was just gonna go up from there because it was really getting traction on
sh
YouTube. But
okay.
so that was one. Red Five reached out to me once about publishing
Mhm.
something with them. That never happened, and I'm I'm not opposed to it necessarily, but it was, I don't know, it was an opportunity. The reality is, I think for me to make the effort to try and get published at one of these publishers, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are appealing about it because I wouldn't have to worry about the entire business aspect of it. I could just worry about the creative aspect, getting them a script, potentially working with an artist. I don't know how in depth, and then they would just publish it, and I could just move on with my life. That sounds great, but I think I'd have to really pursue it in order for to get a deal like that in the works.
Yeah.
So yeah, mostly I really do enjoy the creative freedom.
For
And
sure.
so
Yeah.
it's something that I've been pretty spoiled with crowdfunding for sure. And I every time I look at these campaigns, it's like I gotta not take it for granted because most campaigns don't do that well.
Yeah.
You're able to make a full graphic novel each time. It's pretty great. So as long as I can keep doing that, I'm going to keep doing it.
For sure. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, let's dive into some of these campaigns here. Actually, the first one up, your first one, Downcast. Um, so you mentioned about, struggle. I think that's every writer's struggle when they have an idea, trying to find an artist.
Yeah.
How did you go about finding your artist? Because I think you, I don't know if it's like a nickname, but Nacho is the artist, and he's done all 3 Downcast books, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of lucky with Nacho, but if you go to deviantart.com,
Hmm.
I mean, I know it used to be a bigger place than it is now, and a lot of people say it's dead. However, if you post a paid job there that you're looking for an artist and you're willing to pay, and you really spell out exactly what you want and what they get paid, or whatever, you'll actually have a ton of artists that respond back. And a number of those artists, I don't know what percentage, but probably a large percentage are um, a scam, or they're
Mm,
not really capable of doing what you need done. But I did that a couple times, and I looked at Facebook and DeviantArt, and I actually signed up with a different artist that I found on Facebook before. He did some great art, but he wasn't doing anything. Like, so I had paid him for sample pages. He was not doing anything, and it made me nervous. So
yeah, definitely. That would make me nervous too.
yeah, I pulled the plug, and in hindsight, I guess it was 2 months, and the reality is he was probably working on something else, and he didn't want to tell me, because he's just trying to keep
Oh, okay.
money going. I don't know. Maybe he was a scam artist, but either way, I think I paid him $150, $200 or something like that for just some sample pages, a page or two, something like that. And I never got anything. So I stopped. But part of the reason was because over on DeviantArt, I
Mhm.
kept looking at portfolios, and I saw Nacho's portfolio. Yeah, his name's Ignacio, but he goes by
That's right.
Nacho
Okay.
across the board at home, like that. So he prefers Nacho. We don't put it in the book, but sometimes I wonder if he would want us to. But um, but I just kept coming back to his art, and he has such an interesting style.
Mhm.
And I saw him do just a lot of different, some crime stuff. He had a superhero thing that he had done with a publisher in South America, and I didn't feel content with where I was at until I got Nacho. So
Okay.
talked to Nacho, we worked out a deal, and he started doing sample pages. And once I saw the first page, which is, I think, Joanne breaking through that glass, which is sort of the famous front image there on the campaign. As soon as I saw that, I was floored.
Oh,
Like, I
okay.
was like, this is it. And it's been
Yeah,
crazy because we've been working together ever since. And he's just been an absolute professional and a delight to work with. So
that's awesome. All right. So, in this first campaign, I know in recently you've mentioned that you want to try to get most of the book done. Did you have a lot of the pages done prior to launching the first campaign for Downcast?
No, it was this was the same thing. I didn't have a gun to sell this time, but I sold I'm a pretty big nerd, but I was into Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
I had I don't know if you know Magic, but I had 3 copies of Liliana of the Veil.
I
And
don't know it, but I know it's
yeah.
very popular, and it's like some of the other popular trading card games. Some are probably more expensive than others, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so basically I sold, what would be probably $300 worth of cards.
Oh wow.
Um and that was enough to get some sample pages from Nacho and a cover. And so we put that on the campaign. I didn't change anything actually on the campaign. So every page that's there is what we started with. That's everything that we had. So we truly needed the campaign to make the book. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been, it would have been a failure. So this was one that as soon as we got funding, Nacho started drawing, continuing on the story, and yeah, we made it. From there, it was like it's always a matter of taking the profits. So after the first one shipped out, everything went well. I had a small profit, and then I used that to roll into Downcast 2 and then Downcast 3, so on and so on. And so um yeah, from there I always tried to have the book finished ahead of time. Obviously it didn't always work out. FATL
Right.
was famously late. And yeah, that's just the risk with not having all the pages done
Sure.
first. Yeah.
And um, as far as fatal goes, I think you definitely have extenuating circumstances when health concerns and everything going on that
Yeah.
was explained in your campaign. So that's I guess that can happen to anyone. When it came to this first campaign, how did you go about? Do you remember? You probably don't, but do you remember like how many subscribers you had on YouTube and whatnot, and how that traction was going? How did you go about, finding or building an audience for this, getting those backers for that first one?
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly how many subscribers I had. I think it was I don't think it was even 2,000 subscribers. It was over 1,000 for sure.
Okay.
But you look more at the like any given video that you post, how many views do you get? And the way that I looked at it, I've started a few businesses, and so part of that, like if I take it back to my window cleaning days, um, I would literally go door to door, talk to people, and if you talk to enough people, you're gonna get a new customer. And it's just a numbers game. You don't have to be a great salesman, but it's just a matter of talking to enough people. So I figured on YouTube, if I could get 800 to 1,000 views per video, which at the time was pretty typical for me.
Okay.
And then I'd have a few that would do really well. And it's so crazy now because my videos do not do that well anymore. But at the time it was just, that's a relatively modest number of
Hmm.
views. And if I could get them to sign up to a mailing list, then I've captured their information. And then from there, it's just a matter of asking them to back the campaign. So I think my mailing list was built up to somewhere between 300 and 400 email addresses of people that had said that they were interested in buying my book. My YouTube channel was probably just shy of 2,000 subscribers, something like that, maybe like 1,600 to
Okay.
1,800, somewhere in that range. And then I launched the campaign. Um, and that's partially why I tell everybody when they start out to have a minimum of 300 email addresses before they launch. I don't know if
Okay.
that number holds up, but in my experience, that it made sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a good number. I don't know if he still does this, but I know like on Bancroft show when he was doing the almost daily thing, he mentioned a couple times about, trying to get at least 100 people on your mailing list, because obviously not everyone who is subscribed or subscribed to the list is going to back. Yeah, the hope is that they will, but
Yeah.
that's not always the case. So the more on the list, the better, definitely.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where that your sort of core backer base, they're the ones that'll fuel your campaign. And for me, it was like the first day I was really on my own, as far as promotion and everything. And we had an impressive first day. I think it was like $12,000 raised in the first day,
Oh, wow.
which was, I mean, it's a really big deal before
Yeah.
getting on to any big, channels or anything like that. And so that was enough that people were talking about us. I mean, everybody was talking about it
Sure.
at the time, and it was it was pretty rare for a nobody, like with no industry experience, to raise that much.
Mhm.
And so it got talked about a lot, and then you get more backers, so it's
Right,
kind of
yeah.
like, if you get that core group of backers that can make a statement by backing the campaign, you just leverage that into people talking about you, and you end up getting more backers. So it's crazy because that 300 backers ended up being what, 924, it says,
Yeah.
backers.
Yeah, that's what you
So
ended at.
yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually that I was gonna ask about that, for the first campaign because, like they say, that first day is one of the more important ones. So you did on that first day, you launched on your own channel?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been long enough ago that it's hard to remember all of the details, but I did arrange sort of a book tour, going to different channels and live stream hopping.
Sure, sure.
But the campaign I launched, I took the day off of work. I launched it on my own YouTube channel, and I think I launched at like 10 a.m., something like that. That's normally what I do.
Okay.
And then I spent, several hours on my own channel, and then that evening I went on a few. I think I had like three other channels lined up, but it was the next day that I got on to big channels.
Sure. And I'm sure that definitely helped. But, yeah,
Yeah,
that initial first day, I mean, that's definitely nothing to sneeze at, when you're like you said, you don't have a big career behind you or anything like that. That's why on this show and podcast, I definitely won't pass up talking to someone who's worked in the mainstream or anything,
yeah,
but definitely really want to talk with more creators who don't have that background, who have kind of built this stuff up and built their audience through either social media, mailing lists, however they do it. Um, because I think that's where a lot of the creators are. There's Shane Davis, John Malin, EVS. They've all had the mainstream work.
yeah.
Um, but others like you and Michael Bancroft and Rob Arnold,
Narwhal. Yeah, Rob
Narwhal, yeah.
Arnold. Yep.
So, it's definitely, encouraging and, like, there's a lot of different things that go into it, but seeing that you don't have to have the mainstream, success to have, independent success and success on crowdfunding platforms is definitely a plus.
Yeah.
Alright, so then after, the next year after, Downcast 1, you launched Downcast, the sequel, Rise and Fall. That was the next year, right? Yes.
Yep.
Awesome, and then from this one, you actually increased it looks like you stayed right around the same, maybe a little bit more backers, but, you did have an increase in your campaign, what you raised there. Did you Were you planning? Because we'll get into the other ones, you did FATL and Dracula, but were you planning already on doing the sequel, or did you, like, kinda wanna just and build off that momentum, or was there any tendency to be like, "Oh, I wanna do these other stories?"
Yeah. Um, so I had initially like this grand idea for Downcast. It has since changed quite a bit, and it almost in some ways has gotten bigger. But at
Okay.
the time, I knew the one book, I think it was 52 pages for the first story. It wasn't enough. And the first one making that work in 52 pages was fine, but I wanted to do more. So it was really something I was really, really hoping to do, was to do the second one and wrap up, the end of the story. And again, I had other concepts and ideas that I wanted to do with Downcast, but I thought realistically, if I can do this one more time,
Mhm.
that might be it. Like that's all I can do is one more book. So I had that written out and finished the story arc there in the second book, and I kind of figured this would be the last Downcast. but it ended up doing well. It raised a little bit more money, and that's partially just building a better campaign that, you know, offered a little bit more things. It was a $20 book instead of a $15 book as well, which made definitely made a difference.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that I because I actually caught up. I think I caught up on Downcast with your I think it was with your third campaign.
Mhm.
Um so I didn't realize you had a lower cost for the first book
Yeah.
on Downcast 1 than Downcast 2.
Yeah, and it was close. I made a little profit on the first one, but I didn't realize how expensive everything was. I wasn't charging very much for shipping. It was, you know, it was a learning experience. Everything worked out just fine, but
Sure.
$15 is you know, it makes a difference for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that was I mean, that was what graphic novel length too, so that's still
Yeah.
super good deal at $15, but definitely, I think it's still what's the word I'm looking for? Okay to, charge a little bit more for something a little bit more substantial.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with most people charging 25, um 20 is a fine place to be. Downcast 4 is going to be 20. I'm thinking about doing a little discount for day one backers or something too, but
Okay.
it's a fine place to be. And it really depends on a lot of factors, your artist, and you know, Fatal was a much more expensive book to produce, and so that one being $25 was pretty important.
Mhm.
But yeah, for this, 20 was great, and you know, really quality paper. Was The book is too thick, actually.
Oh,
Like the
okay.
pages were just so thick.
So, in this one, did you do anything different as far as, promoting, doing any launches, anything different on your launch or anything as opposed to the first campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I still launched on my own channel, but I mean, I had a mix of guests on. I went on to big streams that day as well, and so I think there was more expectation of Downcast 2 doing well.
Mhm.
There was also, you know, we made the announcement that we were going to be republishing single issues with Alterna.
Right.
I think right after the launch, if I remember correctly. And so there, everybody was talking about it. It felt like I couldn't go to any live stream just to listen without people talking about it because the Alterna deal and everything was just big news. So
Sure.
um, yeah, it was. I know you always get stress. It's really anxiety inducing before you launch, and this one was no different. But
Mhm.
once day one got rolling, you know, and it just picked up enough steam, it felt more like familiar territory, and so I had expected it to do well. I wasn't sure what it would land at, but I'm, you know, I'm glad it raised more money than the first one.
Yeah, definitely. That's always a good sign, I guess, if you raise a little bit more or even, right around the same, because then you could I feel like it shows that you are if you're not at least building more of a following or anything, you're still, holding true to that
Yeah.
following that stuck with you in the beginning, and they're still following you along.
Hmm.
So then we jump over to Fatal was your next one. So this one really took off. I guess the first question, because I know Charlie has Charlie Snogans, right? Is how you say his
Hmm.
last name.
Yep.
Yeah. So he has his own career in graphic design and everything. So I guess my first question would be: did you how did you find him as an artist for this book here?
Charlie, I think he watched my YouTube videos a little bit, and I know he was watching a lot of people's stuff. You'll find like a lot of artists that are working during the day, full time artists, listen to a lot of these comic book live streams because they're just
Oh,
drawing all
okay.
day. So it was
Yeah.
one of those kind of things, and he randomly just tweeted me, and I know several other creators that you know, sure he would listen to their YouTube videos, and he just posted some art that he did, and it was amazing, like jaw-droppingly amazing.
Mhm.
So I immediately followed him on Twitter and sent him a DM and said, "Hey, you want to work together?" To me, it was just a long shot. Um, and I didn't hear from him in probably, I mean, at least a month. I didn't hear back from him. Then he messaged me back, but he messaged me back with all these images of, what now would become Fatal. Like he had drawn Flynn out, he had drawn Kit and Moxie. He just sort of had these characters floating around. He had no story whatsoever. He didn't have names.
Oh,
He
okay.
just had some characters in a cool world and a bunch of, action concepts. And he sent me images of that. And yeah, we just started talking and decided that we would make a book. So we had a few phone calls and things like that. So it was actually it felt like a long time coming before we got to this. It was almost a year between us meeting online and sort of sharing ideas and artwork to the time when we actually launched Fatal. So yeah, it was a bit of a process, but it was just one of those things because I had a YouTube channel and we connected. So pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, his artwork is like it it's very kinetic and like almost frenzy. It reminds me, I can never remember how to say this artist's last name correctly, but Chris Boccello or Chris Bocello. He's one of my favorite artists, and he has like almost a cartoony style, and his panel layouts are just like crazy sometimes. And
Mhm.
that's what this kind of reminds me of. It's when you see it, oh, that's Charlie Snowgans or
Yeah.
that's this artist. So yeah, it's very, very awesome.
Yeah, it's so cartoony, but and then it's so detailed at the same time,
Hmm.
which is interesting. And then they just look so alive. So yeah, I've always loved his art. Since the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And even now, like, yeah, it's just amazing. He sent me some storyboards. He works in advertising for his day job, and he's doing storyboarding and things. And even those, they look amazing. It's
Oh wow.
cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome to get to see those. So in this one, now correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't offer any in your prior campaigns. You didn't offer any merch like shirts or anything, right? Was this the first campaign you did that?
Yeah. Yep.
How was that? Was that a big undertaking? Because I've heard that merch is like a whole other animal compared to just shipping comic books.
Yeah, I mean, doing t-shirts aren't the worst. They're not very profitable though.
Okay.
They're kind of expensive to make, and then getting the sizes right. But I have learned that if you put them as part of a package deal, people are more likely to get a t-shirt, so you can sell more of them and get the price down a little bit lower. So I learned that lesson, I think, on Dracula or Downcast 3. Dracula, really, I think. So not that long ago. But
Okay.
yeah, just packaging them differently in a collector's bundle, people are more likely to buy them. And it just goes so much better that way.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. Because you just have to, if nothing else, you just have one package to ship out while you're doing the shipping. Because most of us are just doing it. We don't have a crew or anything helping us with the shipping. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a big task to undertake.
Yeah, it gets intense. For Dracula, there were so many. I think we sold about 300 t-shirts, which I mean doesn't sound like a ton, but that's the most t-shirts I've sold in a single run. So
Oh, okay. Now that sounds like a lot to me. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I know there's like companies out there that just specialize in
oh, sure.
t-shirts and things like that, but 300 t-shirts laid across the floor, because we had to, sort them all by size and everything. It was like, oh my, oh man, this is a lot.
Yeah, I
Well, and
bet.
then, putting them each in a poly bag, and I shipped those in the same box. We bought these black boxes for
Okay.
Dracula that looked pretty cool. So yeah, it just ended up shipping better, making a really nice package to ship out to people. So
Nice.
it turned out good.
Very cool. Before I go on, just that gave me an idea of your packagings. So I know some people have the boxes they ship in and the big what are they called? The designed boxes where there's artwork and everything. Do you think do you think like a new creator should maybe look into doing something like that? And two, uh how much do you think it's a like a thing backers look for? Like, oh, look, they have special packaging that makes it a little bit more special or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to get one of those in the mail and they have good packaging. I honestly don't think that it affects your bottom line and overall impression in the long run. Um, there might be some that disagree with me there, but it is a pretty big expense.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I looked into it, but I don't do my own packaging like that. I think getting, those jet black boxes that were completely black, it was so perfect for Dracula. So it was
Yeah.
also like opening a coffin or something. But those were pre-made. I didn't have to special order them or anything. They were just available that way. Um, so if anything, I don't know. I don't think it's worth it, honestly, unless you're, doing a massive campaign.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and I didn't think about that. I thought maybe you like special order this, and but it yeah, definitely if you can get it a price and then the color suits whatever mood you're going for your campaign. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to take the deal that way.
Yeah.
I didn't pull it up, but I did kind of just want to mention it before we move on to Dracula and Downcast 3, your POG campaign, which was very short, but what I guess why did you do it and how did you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, so I'd seen people do the Black Friday campaigns, your boy Zach does those, I think, every year. It was more of, hey, I want to do something around Black Friday that gives people a reason to buy some of this back catalog of books that I have.
Okay.
They can catch up on things. But to me, it was pretty lame just to launch a campaign with already printed books that had already been funded. And so I wanted to add something new. I thought Pogs, I did a Pog set and then I did a trading card set along with it. So you'd get that. It was new. Um, it, it was fun. It probably wasn't worth it. No, it's
Oh,
not
okay.
probably. It wasn't worth it. I'll tell you that. Pogs are actually surprisingly expensive.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't really lose money. I broke even, but if you think about it, I had to sell a bunch of books to break even. So I didn't break even by the might of the Pogs and the trading card sets.
Sure.
That wasn't enough to do it. So yeah, that made me realize that people really just want books.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so we'll jump into what's it? Oh, let's go in Downcast 3 first. So yeah, Downcast 3, 2021. Um, I guess I don't know if we're retreading old water here with your first two, but anything different? Actually, before if there is anything different, you answer that. So you have these variant covers, and I did you have any on the first Downcast book?
Yeah. So yeah, I had two covers on each book, and then actually across the board, every book I've done has had two covers.
Okay, okay. So how I the obvious answer is yes, variant covers work and everything because everyone does them, but how do you feel they work as on far as like maybe indie lower creator campaigns who maybe don't sell a whole bunch, and especially with these ones I really like is it Matt Weldon? Yeah, Matt
Matt
Weldon, his
Weldon.
covers here.
Yeah.
And Eric Weathers has a really awesome cover too. I think it was in Downcast 3 that I really enjoyed. But if they're not the the scantily clad, not safe
Yeah.
for work covers, how do they still, are they still a pretty good seller that backers want, do you think?
Yeah. Um, I think the variant cover is a must
Okay,
for most people. It gets your print run higher, and therefore you can get the price per book down. You're just selling more books. Not everybody wants variant covers, and I'll admit, um, gosh, even for me when I back campaigns, sometimes I want to get all the things, but I don't want two copies of the same book with different covers.
sure.
So I don't know. To me, that can, I don't know. It definitely, it is not for everybody all the time. Having said that, numbers don't lie, and people get variant covers. So I try to put it within reason. I've only ever done two. It's never one. It's always two. It's never three.
Okay.
So I've often wondered if I did 3 covers, would I be making more money in a significant enough of a way, versus making people upset that I'm selling 3 covers. There's some point for sure when people get sick of it and they don't want more variant covers. So I think I could definitely do more than 2. It just feels, I don't know. As a reader, I just feel like I don't want to do 3,
Yeah.
or more. It feels, something about it feels dirty to me.
Right.
But no shame to anybody that does.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I don't know. To me, doing one variant cover is a must, because the expense of doing that is paying the artist and possibly a colorist
Okay.
one time for that cover, and then the printer, it's only like, depending on the printer, maybe $200 to $400 for them to add a variant cover. And when you add that on top of a print run, it's really not much.
Sure. Okay.
So it's super worth it, I think, to add a variant cover. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense in the long run. That's if nothing else super cost effective to have you have two different covers people can choose from, or if collectors like to have a certain artist, or there's the
yeah,
I can't remember what they're called, but the people who like to collect every single one, and
a
they have the
completionist.
yeah, there you go,
Yeah,
completionists. Um, it is, yes, if nothing else, very cost effective to do that for those. I sometimes get variant covers myself when I order from campaigns. Most of the time, I'll do it because I really enjoy a cover and I don't want to mess it up. So I'll go order the variant cover and the regular cover, or vice versa, and one will be a reader's copy and the other one will
yeah.
be like bag it up.
Yeah, I love it. That's a good route to go. And there's also, when you're doing comic books, there's a lot of different kinds of readers, and you know, well, I think the people that don't want variant covers are very vocal.
Mm,
Again, numbers don't lie. There are a significant number of people that do like variant covers, and I have heard from completionists, and they'll say they want more because they want
mm,
to collect more. And so
interesting.
there's something there too. So I do think that it's good to have a balance. You're helping the collectors that, they want more than just one copy, of the book, and then, not also overwhelm readers with too many covers.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, yeah, like I said, I don't want to retread something we might have already gone through with Downcast 1 or 2, but anything different you do different with this campaign as opposed to the first ones, or even
Yeah.
from Fatal?
So I will say Downcast 3 is the first book that I had 100% complete first.
Oh, okay.
So that was a big difference, and it made it less stressful and more stressful at the same time. I can't explain that, but yeah, it was a very different kind of thing. But overall, I liked doing it that way.
Okay.
Also, the second thing is that Fatal, remember, at the time had not been fulfilled; it hadn't been shipped out, and so it felt like a pretty big risk at the time to launch another book when I hadn't shipped the last one. It was the first time I had a, campaign sort of doubled up like that.
Sure.
Um, but besides that, it went really well, and that was in large part because of the Monstro right there. That character,
Mhm.
um, he fascinated people, and so I attribute that a big reason why this book sold so well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely there's that mysteriousness to him that, um I think you did a good, even though I can't remember what the joke was now, but there was the joke with the trailer that you had. Um, I think it was
Do you smell
Smalley.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that aside, I thought you did a great job with that trailer. Like it kinda told you what the book was about, but not really. So even if you had read the first two, you're like, "Oh, what's a new player on the field? What's going on here?" So,
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that trailer was so fun to make too. I was just in the mood to do it, and
okay.
like Downcast 2, the trailer was, I decided, I put like no effort into it,
Okay.
and it was embarrassing. So we did one with Fatal, and it went over pretty well. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this one.
For
And
sure.
I just had so much fun making it that yeah, it went well. I didn't end up doing one for Dracula at all, but
Yeah. Did you so you made the trailer yourself?
yeah.
Oh, wow. What programs did you use for that?
I use my crappy editing software. It's called VideoPad Editor.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it has like a free download. You can't, it's super limited. So I paid for it. It was like $40 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, and then I found, I think it was Von Klaus showed me there's this free tool online that you can change your voice. So you just put some audio into it and it'll change your voice. And so I read the Monstro's lines in like a really bad accent, to sound like a salty sea dog kind of thing,
Okay.
and then ran it through that voice changer a few different times. And I think the one I ended up, I wouldn't even remember. I don't think I could duplicate it, but I ran it through one voice changer and then a separate one. And I don't know if you can tell it's my voice or not. I think other,
Kinda, but it's still distorted enough where it sounds unique.
yeah, but it worked.
Mhm.
And then it sort of just introduced this character, and him looking at it from his perspective made it fun. Yeah, I don't know how that affected sales at all, but it was a really fun trailer to make.
That's awesome. Yeah, Von Klaus is, someone else I would like to eventually talk to. Just a side note, did you see that animatic or quick animation he posted?
I did, yeah. I'm
That l
I'm excited.
Yeah, that looks really cool. I would definitely be interested in backing something to even like a short, whatever, 5, 10 minute animated short of that. That would be neat.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be
Cool.
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we'll finish up with Dracula here. Now, I think I remember yeah, that's going. I think I remember rumblings about like how did this come about? Because I thought I remembered somebody saying, or maybe you or somebody saying about Clint Stoker's Dracula, just playing off Bram Stoker, Clint Stoker. But how did this come about?
Yeah, there are several people that remember it different ways, and I'll be honest, I mean, I'm not 100% sure the origin of it, but I will tell you that growing up with the last name of Stoker,
Mhm.
people would joke about me all the time being related to Bram. I know that, like, I knew several people that would just call me Bram, just in
Okay.
passing, and so um, it was kind of there, especially as I started writing and stuff. I never really wanted to do a Dracula story. I had no desire to do something that was already existing, but
Mhm.
I kind of joked about it on my stream. I know the chat was joking about it. Um, and I'll be honest, I don't remember 100%,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, at any rate, people kept asking about me doing a Dracula book in the chat,
Oh,
and
okay.
it ended up being a joke or whatever. And I wanted to do just maybe a short story, and I actually had written what would have been the short story, which was completely different from this Dracula.
Mhm.
And I started saying on another stream, one of my streams, that I was gonna just do a little short story and maybe it'd be an add-on ash can or something. And I got a super chat. I don't remember who it was, but they said, "We want you to take it seriously. Treat, it's not
Oh.
just a one-off short story. Like, do a full book." And that's when I was like, "Okay, the people want it." So, um, yeah, so I got connected with Donald DeLay, and I actually wrote and rewrote the script several different ways, like vastly different ways, and ultimately decided to do a modern take on Dracula.
Okay.
And because it was Clint Stoker's Dracula, I really tried to make it something different and unique, and that worked for some people, didn't work for other people. But I did it. I
Yeah.
did it my way. So
So, since it wasn't like a initial story that you had initially, thought, "Oh, maybe I'll do this one day." How'd you enjoy doing it as eventually now you're decided to do it? Did you like doing it, or is it like getting to the end and you kind of felt, oh well, I have to finish this now because I already said I was going to do it.
Yes and yes, actually. It was fun to write it. Every once in a while I'd get this like intense anxiety because someone would make a comment about, "Oh, I hope this that and the other." And I realized that everybody had these assumptions of what a Dracula story should be because
Mm,
everybody knows Dracula. And so that ended up being stressful, and I remember there were some times I was like, maybe I should just not do this because it's impossible to make everybody happy.
right.
Um, but ultimately, I mean, it was fun to do the story. Working with Donald was amazing. Um, Donald's been fantastic to work with, and just doing this cartoony style is just I mean, every artist I work with is different, but to me, Donald's style is just so different.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun to work with him, and he tailors his style to any given story. I mean, you could compare this to Cash Grab or No Cover that he's doing now, or Brutus. And
Right.
this looks pretty different from what he is doing now. So
Yeah, that's what I've noticed that about his style. He has that cartoony animated kind of style to it, but it's not all the same. Like the Brutus one, I haven't read it, but I've seen the artwork and it looks cartoony but much more detailed than say something like Cash Grab. So I kind of appreciate that because this is his cover right here, right?
no, that's Eric Canetti on the
Oh, that's
cover of
Eric
that one.
Canetti. Okay,
Yeah.
nice. So did
So yeah.
you had Eric Canetti and then you had Kelsey.
Yep.
Nice. Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you about those covers?
Yeah, so so I was gonna have Donald do a cover, and
Hmm.
I often will have guest artists do covers, but this time around I thought, well, I talked to Eric Canetti, I reached out to him. Every once in a while we'll text, and he's always been just such a cool guy.
Awesome.
And so I asked him to do a cover. He said, sure. So I thought, I'm good. Now I've got, Donald DeLay will do his cover, and Donald always does fantastic covers. So I thought that'd be fantastic to have him do one. And then I had one from Eric Canetti, which is like a dream come true. Kelsey reached out to me. And the way that Kelsey works is he just gets a wild hair and he says, hey, I want to do something for you. He did
I've heard that from other creators who he's done like a variant for. They're like, oh,
uh,
he reached out, so I'm just letting him do whatever he wants.
right. And he's just such a cool dude, but he reached out. I can't remember, but he did the cover for Downcast too. So I had a Kelsey cover and I had a
Okay.
Matt Weldon cover, and he killed that cover too. It was great. For this one, he's like, I want to do something for Dracula, and I've got this concept, and he sent me a rough sort of sketch, and he works digitally, so it had some
Hmm.
color and stuff, but it was this cover in essence. And I said, ah man, I already have covers, but we'll make this a trading card. So okay, yeah, yeah. So then he sends me the completed piece, and here you see it,
Yeah.
and it's too awesome.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, Donald hasn't finished a cover yet, so I'm gonna reach out to Donald. Sorry, Donald. Let me show you this. And I sent it to him, and he's like, that needs to be a cover. I'm like, yep. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that
would be. I mean, still, I mean, doing any type of trading card print, whatever, is pretty awesome to if somebody asks you to be a part of that. But when you have a really cool piece of artwork, you want to like put it on display.
yeah. Yeah, it's just, and I'm in a DM room with Eric Weathers and Rob Arnold and
Okay.
Bancroft and those guys, and that's sort of like, we're the bros that hang out a lot.
Sure. Sure.
And I posted this in there, and all of them were like, well, you have to make this a cover.
Right. Right.
And yeah, so I'm just blown away. I still look at that and I think, man, Dracula just has two amazing covers. I love Eric Canetti's cover. It's just killer
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that was Donald DeLay. I think it was like looking. It's the way Dracula looks in the cover is very reminiscent to how Donald DeLay draws him. So I was just assuming, oh,
yeah.
that's Donald DeLay's cover.
Yeah, and that's no accident. That's well, Kelsey just drew from his head. I told him a rough concept, and he just drew what he wanted.
Hmm.
And he called it his American Psycho Dracula. So that was kind of his inspiration. With
Sure.
this, Donald had a lot of pages done when Eric Canetti did this cover, and so I sent those pages to him, and he made it look consistent with the way that Donald drew him, and even down to the dresses and the masks,
Yeah.
for his wives. And so that was so yeah, he was definitely informed and
Okay.
sticking to character, to model. And so that's why it jives so well. So this one to me works the best with what the story is. Kelsey's cover it's just whatever he came up with, but
Right.
it's just
Right.
awesome cover. So
It's like one of those variant covers from, any big company where you have the standard cover kind of, and
yeah.
then you just get some superstar artist and he does whatever he wants. And it's like, oh, there's the variant. So
Yep. Yeah,
very cool.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, I didn't pull this up, so let me see if I can pull this up real quick. But that's pretty much all your campaigns. So you have Downcast 4 coming up soon. Do you know when exactly you are launching Downcast 4?
The plan is next
Oh,
week. It's like coming quick. It's
okay.
it's been hard to prepare for it, but yeah, the plan was the 6th. So, and this is the first one I want to launch in the evening. Usually I take off a day of work and I launch in the morning, but this time I'm thinking it'll be next Thursday
Okay.
um evening time. And I need to get pretty vocal about that pretty soon, but man, it's been busy, so it's coming up fast.
For sure. I will yeah, I went to your profile real quick to hopefully did you have a mailing list set up for Indiegogo?
Yeah, so I have a pre-launch page on
Yeah.
Indiegogo, and this is the first one that yes, I have a pre-launch page there, but I'm actually going to the plan is to launch on my own website.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I think I've heard you talk about that on maybe on your own channel or on other streams, but I wasn't sure if you were gonna do it like some I think Mandy Summers did hers first here on her website and then she did it to Indiegogo. So I wasn't
mhm.
sure what kind of plan you were doing that. So you're gonna launch it both at the same time or first on your website?
I'm gonna go first on my website, so it'll
Nice.
sort of focus all the energy and attention there, and I'll see how it goes. I've already gotten I got an email today from a trusted peer in crowdfunding comics, and he said just do Indiegogo, don't do your own site. Like, but the problem is that I hear from so many different backers that say they're upset with Indiegogo right now, and for some good reasons. I don't right now my pre-launch page, if you search for it on Indiegogo, you can't find it. It's
Well,
not
yeah,
in,
I was gonna say that's shenanigans right now because I was like, oh, I forgot to pull it up. Let me just go to your profile page, and it's not even on your
yeah,
profile page here. So,
you cannot find it unless you have a direct link. So it's
hmm.
pinned to my Twitter account, but um that I don't know if it's just that somebody screwed up at Indiegogo, but it's not like what it used to be. I don't have a contact there anymore. I used to. Um, and so it's hard to hear back from anybody. It's hard to, I mean, it's hard for me to trust them. If I'm sending everybody to the pre-launch page myself,
Right.
then
Yes.
do I have to send everybody to the campaign page myself? And if at that point, I might as well not give them a cut.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm very frustrated as a creator on for that too. I'm planning on launching my book in May, and I was hoping to maybe do it in Indiegogo. I'd been wanting to kind of plan it out and see when I wanted to do it for a few months now, but I'm actually going to launch on Kickstarter. I'm kind of using it as my own. I'm setting my goal pretty low, just to get a real low print run, and I'm using it kind of as just to get my name out there a little bit more and build up
Yeah.
audience that way. But even just doing something small like that, I was like, well, do I want to go on Indiegogo and just kind of shoot myself in the foot if for whatever reason it doesn't show up on searches or whatever? I'll just go to Kickstarter. At least there I know it can be searched and everything, hopefully.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I still think if it's your first campaign, there's a lot of value in these platforms and just
Mhm.
getting eyeballs on your stuff. And I don't even know right now if for me it's really a good idea to be doing it on my own site, but I'm sure gonna find out.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I think it works. I feel like, once you get a big enough audience, running it on your own site is, I think, is the premier spot to do it because, like you said, you don't have to give anyone else a cut. You can control everything there, even if it's just something like one of the Shopify plugins. I think works great, and
yeah.
like I said, you're controlling everything. So yeah, definitely. So, any type of spoilers or not spoilers, but story wise and anything about what we're going to get into in Downcast 4?
Yeah, so right at the end of Downcast 3, you see a glimpse, introduction of some new gods that just entered Strata, and
Mhm.
so this is basically battleground. So you have Jax and Monstro teaming up to hunt these monsters, and then Joanne is working at trying to figure out Carver and his origin, and so it's going to be a really fun book. It'll continue the story, and it's going to change things in a pretty drastic way. So
Okay.
I'm pretty stoked about it.
Awesome. How many, or do you know how many volumes or arcs that you want to tell if you're able to do so?
Yeah, I mean, if I had could have everything my way, I would do 8 volumes.
Okay.
So this would be halfway through. We will see. I think I wouldn't have to go that many. Rounding it off at 6 would be okay too, but I would definitely like to do 2 more volumes. So after this one, after volume 4.
Sure.
So we'll see. It's one of those things like one step at a time. I never know, like with any of these, how long it's gonna go. But
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, well, before we end, thanks again for doing this and, talking about all this stuff and different tidbits. The last time I talked to Narwhal and Rob Arnold and future guests, I would just like to end by like trying to get a couple last piece of information nuggets. So one thing I would like to know if you see anything on campaigns or maybe something that you've done yourself in the past that you're like, oh, that doesn't work. I shouldn't have done that, or they should not do that. That's not a good idea. Just for an example, I've seen some campaigns where they have a text box, for the description or whatever the story is, but it's an image and they make the font all crazy just because maybe they're trying to, make it different, but it's really hard to read. So anything like that or any type of reward tiers or anything like that come to mind that you think maybe is not the best idea?
yeah, I think artist editions, people don't realize that those are really expensive. It's not like a
Mm,
variant cover. It's a whole new print run. And so I mean, I love artist editions. I love to get them,
mhm,
but to make them part of a campaign, it's not most of the time I don't think it's a good idea, especially if it's your first campaign or if you're not expecting to make, you know, I think like you need to realistically you need to be making probably like $15,000 to
okay,
make a comic book. I mean, you could do very small print runs, but if you're going to do like a graphic novel version that has a spine and everything,
sure,
adding on an artist edition, you're just going to add on a very small print run of a whole other book that you have to do. And so it's most of the time I think not a good idea. And a lot of people are trying to start do them now, but
mm.
um I caution you against it unless you really, really want to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense because, like you said, it's not like a variant cover where you just pay a little bit more to have a different cover. It's a whole second book basically,
Yeah.
and some people who want to do like the really nice ones have them hard covers and everything, and that just raises the price more. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So on the opposite end of that, is there anything that you see in your own campaigns or others that you're like, oh, that's a really good idea. I should do that going forward?
I want to improve digital.
Okay.
That's one, and I've seen some people do it well. I think a lot of people have been afraid to offer a digital tier, but I don't know. The more I think about it, I think it's important to the mix. So I want to do that and do it at a good price and give people a good digital version, which I'm still learning how to do.
Okay.
There's a lot to that. So
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you on that too. This digital, um, I feel like a lot of people only focus on physical copies because they're only focused on collectors. And even though I collect a lot of things and comics are some of those, I don't really view myself as a collector. Like when it comes, especially when it comes to books and comic books, like I'm a reader first. So I don't really view it as something I'm going to collect and then maybe sell down the road or something. Um, so when it comes to digital, if it's something I really like, I've bought in digital copies of, paperbacks and or ebooks of like graphic novels or whatever. And if I really like it, then I'll get the physical too. And I know some people think digital sales eat physical sales, but I'm actually I don't agree with that. I think if someone likes the digital that much, I've done that on multiple occasions where I've read a book as just because there's no comic book shop near me or no bookstore near me, I have to read it digital if I really want to. And once I do get next to a bookstore or a comic book, I'm like, oh, I really like this. I want to buy the physical copy too.
yeah, and I'd rather sell digital copies to people overseas,
Yeah.
especially you put people in a tough position. Sometimes they want to get the book, they want to read it, but they're forced to get a physical copy. But you're shipping it to the UK or something, anywhere in the EU,
Hmm.
and it can be really expensive, especially when those packages get lost. You have to reship them out or refund. It gets difficult. So I'd rather just make digital an option for those. And I don't mind shipping overseas for people that want the book, but when a simple digital option would
Yeah.
solve the problem for everybody, then yeah, to me it's a good route to go.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks again. And yeah, everyone go and check out these books. It looked like you still have Fatal in demand. How long do you plan on keeping that one in?
Um, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have a date yet. Right now it's up on in demand. And we're finishing off shipping out the prints. So Charlie signed those. I mean, the campaign is mostly fulfilled. I know I got a few new backers in this past week. But yeah, you still have a chance to back it. When I do close it, it'll be available on my website.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not yet. So
Okay, for sure. So definitely go and check that out. Link will be for that in the description down below. Also go and check out Downcast 4 Hunting Ground. The sign up page is up on that. The link for that will also be in the description down below. And yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight, Clint.
you bet. Bye everyone.